Corey, it looks like we're going to have NBA games back on December 22nd. That's still got to be approved by the players. It's still being negotiated, but looks like it's going to happen. Christmas Day games. But do you like the early start? Do you think this is a good move for the league?
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, as a fan, I just love Christmas Day games. That's a big family tradition for us. But yeah, I mean, Kurt, I think when you talk about trying to fit in the full season and with the revenue, trying to bring that extra revenue in, I think that's upwards of 500 million. I think that's a good for everybody, right?
I'm with you. Look, it comes down to the money at the end of the day. I mean, it's a business, and if they can make 500 extra million, the other thing is that's really happening. The owners came to the realization with everything that's going on with COVID-19 in our nation right now and a spike, and probably not getting a vaccine out until some point in the middle of next year for most people. It's kind of a loss, right? You're not going to have people in the building. If you can push it back till March, you're not really gaining that much, because when are people going to come back? You're better off getting next season over. Do 72 games, get it done, get back on your regular schedule, because if the bubble showed one thing, and it's shown across sports right now, people are not watching sports out. I mean, there's a lot of other things going on with the election and everything else, but people don't really they don't want to watch basketball when it's football season. They don't want to, they want their things back where they are. Get back on your normal schedule for 21-22 and make that the year you're back and rolling and getting the economics of the game back. I think it makes a lot of sense that way, and I think most of the players would be down. I guess the question becomes, will some of the players push back on this?
Yeah, and I think, the mental toll that we saw in the bubble, I think is something to be aware of. We can never separate the fact that these athletes are human beings, so just understanding the emotional toll being away from your family or being in a basketball-only environment for months, I definitely think that's going to be an issue. But then you look at the flip side, and how many teams haven't played basketball since March? So those teams are itching to get back on the court just as much as other teams are itching for a vacation. So I feel like you're going to have a lot of tension that needs to be resolved in the players' room. But at the end of the day, if you can get paid to play your game and play 72 seasons and get your full salary, I think that most people can agree that that's worth doing.
Yeah, look, that 500 million you talked about that's being thrown around is how much more money they make. Remember, half of that goes to the players. That's 250 million back into their pool that goes into the percentage of salaries they get. That's a motivator, man. I don't know about you, 250 million motivates me. So, they're ready to go. I think that makes a lot of sense for them. I think it's better for the game. I think it gets it back. I think we're going to see that work for them. I mean, look, you're also going to get a lot of load management this year. You are going to get guys resting because that's just the way it's going to have to be. LeBron, if you're going to condense a 72-game schedule where LeBron has 73 games off, yeah, he's going to play on Christmas Day, but he might miss the next couple after that. They're going to have to watch him. I think you're going to get more of that across the league, but that's just the price you're going to have to pay to run this year that way.
And the good news is, Kurt, that since the bubble, we've seen a lot of emergence of new stars. So I feel like even though the Clippers, for instance, with Kawhi, LeBron going all the way, Anthony Davis, some of the stars that are beloved in the league, although they may want some load management, you still have guys like Zion Williamson and John Morant. You still have young guys, Donovan Mitchell, Jamal Murray, who you could still feature and showcase on those Christmas Day games and build excitement for the next generation. Luka Doncic, Porzingis. Yeah. So there's a lot of names out there that we can go through that I still think could bring value into those Christmas Day games.
Yeah, I'm going to run over and knock on wood that we get a lot of Zion Williamson this season and he's healthy. So, all right. The other thing that we are going to see, it looks like, in the new system, a play-in tournament. Some form of 8 and 9, 7, 8, 9 are going to play it out as we saw happen in the bubble. I'm really backing this. I wanted them to do this before, and some of the owners balked at it. Are you happy to see this in?
Absolutely. I think the excitement that it brought around the bubble, just fighting for those fringe spots, because most of the time, think about back in the day, right, when you have a 1 versus 8, that series is almost like, why would I even watch this series? Yeah. It's like, really, why would I even watch it? So now you have at least a little bit of these, almost like these mini narratives, these arcs within the series of the playoffs where, can Portland make it? I don't know. I actually invested now. I think that's going to be really valuable for the playoffs. What do you think?
Yeah, I know. I love it. And I go back to 2018. A lot of people forget this. This was the year I was like, no, we should definitely start doing this. It just worked out on the schedule that Minnesota and Denver played the last night of the season. Winner goes to the playoffs, loser goes home. It's just the way the schedule broke that year. And that was so much fun. It ended up being an overtime game where Minnesota eventually won and made the postseason. But that kind of drama, that kind of excitement on the last night. I mean, we get that a little bit with like the Premier League, right? Where there's some games that last night, usually not for the championship. It's usually more tied to relegation, but there's actual drama on the last day. And it's something that the NBA has lacked because of the way the schedule sets up. This adds it in. I absolutely love it. I want to watch 7, 8, 9, 10 battle it out for those last couple of spots, man. That's fun.
And I think there's also revenue opportunity for those teams, right? I mean, and a lot of those times the 8th seed, I mean, at least in my experience, I've seen them be kind of like smaller markets. So if you get at least a playoff team, especially when fans are allowed back, so you get some more extra playoff or fringe playoff games in your arena, like it's all good all the way around.
Yeah, exactly. Because those teams, let's be honest, they're pretty much, if you're the 8th seed, you're probably not advancing. You're probably getting your 2 home games, and that's about it. But if you can get some extra games in there and get your fan base excited about something other than, oh, we're going to the playoffs to get smacked around by the Lakers, if you get them involved, like that's good for the game. So, all right, Corey, we are entering NBA free agency. It's coming up pretty soon. It's looks like it's going to be late November, December 1st, somewhere in there, wherever they end up negotiating. This is not an elite free agent class. There's nobody Anthony Davis is out there, but he's not changing teams. But there is some really interesting stuff, right? Like there's really interesting players, really intriguing guys who could switch teams. I mean, who are you going to be watching? What are one of the guys you're going to have your eye on for NBA free agency?
Yeah, first and foremost, I just want to agree with you versus like last year, where you had just bedlam. Last year's free agency was a reality TV show. And this year's free agency is more normal and everyone's kind of like, oh, there's nothing going on. But I think the piece here to watch for me is, can the Bucks re-sign Giannis? I feel like that's on everyone's radar.
Yeah.
But the one that's a little more interesting, just as a fan personally, is Goran Dragic and his piece and fit in with the Miami Heat. We saw the Heat team roll through an Eastern Conference, which was really interesting to see. I mean, they played against a great Bucks team, number 1 seed. They played against a talented Celtics team and bested them. They went 6 games with the Los Angeles Lakers without Bam and Goran for the majority of that. So if you get those pieces back, I think you can go pretty far. But the only question is, do you go for Kendrick Nunn, who had some valuable minutes late in the finals against the Lakers in Goran's absence? Or do you try to re-up Goran Dragic and go Butler, Dragic, and Hero again? So that's where I'm going to be spending most of my time.
See, you're right. Last year was a wild free agency, and 2021 sets up to be that way. In fact, you mentioned Antetokounmpo. I bet he doesn't sign right now. It keeps pressure on the organization to build around him. You can always re-sign. It's the exact same deal a year from now. So, if he waits, he's fine, and he might just do that. But there's all sorts of possibilities in 2021. That includes the Miami Heat, who think they have a shot at Antetokounmpo, plus a bunch of other top free agents that are available that year. I think they're going to try to sign Goran to a big 1-year deal, but it's going to be interesting because you're right. I think other teams, if you're the Clippers, maybe you come in with a longer mid-level exception deal and you can offer him a little more money and a little length of security. And it's going to be interesting to see him decide, and some of those Heat players decide what exactly they want to do in free agency. Jay Crowder is available. It's going to be interesting to see if they can roll that exact team back or how they make it work. Look, the best free agent that may switch teams to me is Fred VanVleet, but I think the guy that might be slightly more interesting is Montrezl Harrell. Sixth man of the year, comes in rolling. You think, oh man, this guy's going to get a lot of suitors and a lot of money. A lot of teams could use that kind of energy, and then he gets exposed in the playoffs. His defense isn't there. They're better off with Zubac on the floor. They're actually minus 11.6 per 100 when he's on the floor in the playoffs. And part of that was because he wasn't there because of his grandmother's death and some stuff, and he wasn't in shape that he normally would be. But it hurt him. And now I'm curious, the Clippers will pay to bring him back, but I don't think he's going to get the money he thought he was. And I'm curious if he can, with Charlotte, who was a kind of team that was looking at a big, and if they don't get somebody like James Wiseman in the draft, do they come in big? Or does some other team come in and say, man, we could really use the energy he brings and we'll come in over the top? And if they do the Clippers go, you know what, we'll just sign Marcus Morris, we'll keep Zubac and let it walk? I'm really curious how that's going to play out, how the Clippers what the Clippers are going to do this offseason after that disappointment and with their new coach. Or are they just going to try to run it back? I think that's a fascinating one. I don't know the answer.
It's a conundrum.
Yeah.
But you're right, Harold, his energy, who's an absolute spark plug.
Yeah.
And I think that it doesn't always, when you have a guy like that, it doesn't always translate directly to the stat sheet. Sometimes there's just like almost like a chemistry or energetic field around some of those guys that bring everyone else up. So it's hard to quantify that, but yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see.
Yeah, and there's other guys like that. I think Carmelo Anthony is sort of like that. You're like, oh, he found a home. He's in Portland. Well, there's talk about the Knicks trying to get him or other teams trying to poach him. And plus, he was really valuable to them when they were injured. But Zach Collins, Rodney Hood, Trevor Ariza, who skipped the bubble, they're all back. So the minutes for Melo are a little less. Does he go somewhere he wants to get, more? I don't know that he's going to make a lot more money, but can he go somewhere he gets more run as opposed to the role he's going to have to take in Portland, which will be smaller next year just because of everybody being healthy. And I'll tell you, one sneaky name to watch on free agency, Christian Wood. 4th and 6th man of the year voting. Look, he was with the Detroit Pistons for people who weren't following Detroit Pistons, which was, a lot of people because they weren't terribly good. But he played really well, especially at the end of the season. It was fascinating. There's a lot of teams looking at him as a guy they might want to come in and try to poach. If you want a big man, how much are they going to pay to keep him? They traded Andre Drummond. It sounds like they're going to pay to keep him, but he's a guy who he could get one of those salaries, Corey, where suddenly everybody's like, "Wait, who just got how much money? What?"
the Boban effect, right? I think about
exactly.
like all the guys from San Antonio that play like a role, emerge, and then sign max deals at like Davis Bertans. Just the list kind of goes on.
Bertans is going to get paid. He is a free agent this summer, and he is probably with Washington. But talk about, man, if you're a stretch big, it's a good time to be a stretch big, Corey. You should have been a stretch big.
Give me 5 inches. That's all I need. Give me 5 inches, and I'll sign a $20 million contract tomorrow.
Okay, we'll work on that. The breaking news today: Daryl Morey is going to be hired by the Philadelphia 76ers as their new president of basketball operations. He's the head guy. I mean, do you like this hire for the Sixers?
Like with everything in Philadelphia, I'm cautiously optimistic. They really haven't been able to find the winning combination with their 2 superstars. Coach Brown wasn't able to really figure it out. But now I think they have a lot of hope. There's a lot of optimism over in the city of brotherly love. You got Doc Rivers and now Daryl Morey looking to make something happen. So I don't know, but I'm not ready to buy that product just yet.
I like it in this sense. This is an organization that's jumped all over the place, right? I mean, they were the process, then the Colangelos come in and they start trying to win now. Then that falls apart. Elton Brand comes in and 180s the thing into a big team with no shooting last year. Daryl Morey will come in with a philosophy, right? Like we know what he would kind of like to do, and I don't think that means break up Embiid and Simmons. I mean, you're not going to do that, right?
No way.
No. You've got to try to make it work. I mean, ultimately, maybe you have to break it up someday, but right now, I think with Doc and with Daryl Morey, you put some shooting around them, you kind of fix that lineup in some ways. I like that. I mean, I kind of like the idea of letting these guys take a shot at an elite coach, a top flight GM, see if they can make it work with these 2 stars. And ultimately, if you have to change it, you have to change it. But the thing is also, if it comes to that, Daryl Morey will be aggressive.
Yeah, and I do like what you said before where it comes to as far as like the different pieces they're bringing in, right? You have Doc, who I just admire so much as far as his basketball mind and his character and being the backbone of an organization from a coaching perspective, being able to show the guys leadership in that position. And then you have the philosophy aspect of Daryl Morey, what he brings to the table. You have the consistency that Elton Brand has built into, and he's seen over the years the process of overseeing that process in Philadelphia. So altogether, this might be the combination to unlock that potential and catapult them past the second round of the playoffs. But we'll see. I think that the key thing here is that the 76ers tried to get Morey before. So this is something that isn't just like a spur of the moment thing. This is something that, seems as if they've been pursuing him for a while. So hopefully that kind of there's both sides that want to be together. And like we know in any type of business, if you actually enjoy the people that you're around and you want to be there, that's going to be the difference maker.
It is. And it also helps. Look, when you're talking about Daryl Morey, like, he's really good at understanding part of the job of a GM is to keep ownership out a little bit of the basketball operations side. That's rumored to have been an issue in Philadelphia. I think you've got basketball people in there they can trust. Get out of the way, let them run the show. And I think, like I said, I think this could work. Doc Rivers is going to hold those guys accountable in a way that probably wasn't happening under Brett Brown if you listen to the rumors. And Daryl Morey, for all the talk about small ball and analytics and everything, he just wants to win. He will adapt his system to winning. He wants to find stuff that'll work. And he found a lot of good role players. He hunted stars. He hunted James Harden and Chris Paul and even Dwight Howard back when in a more peak Dwight Howard days. But I mean, finds the PJ Tuckers, the Eric Gordons, that like he found role players around them, which is exactly what they need in Philly right now.
Yeah, and that is the key. I think from my perspective, when I look at that 76ers team, you have all the talent in the world in Joel Embiid. He hasn't been able to take into that transcendent step yet. But I feel like hopefully with Doc Rivers there, he can help bring him to that next level. Ben Simmons is a very talented individual as well. And then we're just trying to figure out how do they play next to each other. That's kind of been like the biggest thing. It's like how do you have that chemistry on court? And I think that hopefully with Moral's philosophy, Daryl Morey's philosophy, he'll be able to unlock Simmons in that position as well.
I hope so. Look, I think Joel Embiid has the potential and can be the most dominant center in the NBA. He shows it for flashes. If they can find a way to extend that out, they become a force in the East.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see it. So from my perspective, like I said, cautiously optimistic. I'm not going to buy the ticket until I see it in person. I want to see a couple of games, but I think it looks promising.
It does look promising. And man, if you're a Sixers fan, you've got a lot of hope right now.
And we didn't even talk about Tobias Harris too, so I feel like there's a lot.
Doc's old guy. Yeah, there's a lot of potential there, man.